Marty, thank you very much for those kind words. I feel very blessed to have grown up in Fairfield. We were taught right from wrong, a strong work ethic, the importance of family, how to be a good friend and a neighbor, and many more values I still strive to implement in my own life. I'm also proud to be a member of the class of '59. So many of you are accomplished in your own right. Many of you could be up here offering a much more inspirational talk than I. Ron, Marty, maybe you asked several others before you asked me. I truly am humbled and honored to be standing up here. Who would have thought that little Joyce Worley from the New Hope community would ever have anything to say to a group like you? When I was about 4 or 5 years old, my mother had a friend over, and in showing her our lilac bush, they heard me talking in the outhouse. Her friend asked who was in the outhouse with me. Mother answered, "Oh, Joyce is just talking to the people in the Sears Roebuck catalog." I still like to talk and still feel many times like that little girl talking to herself and the people in the catalog. I will tell you that I'm pretty comfortable speaking to a classroom full of elementary students, and often their parents. It is a little daunting to be speaking to all of you. Earlier, I shared with Marty how uncomfortable I was. She said she also became uncomfortable when she gave a speech. Then she confided with me that every time she gets up in front of a group like you, she simply pictures you in your underwear. During dinner, I did what Marty suggested. I looked around and I pictured most of you in your underwear. It was not a pretty sight. I'm sure that some of you are hoping I will comment on the great sports achievement of the class of '59. Remembering how our football team was sensational. Our basketball team was pretty spectacular, and the track teams were equally memorable. I actually did go to many of the games, but at that time in my life, I was not focusing on what was happening on the field. I was much more into what I was wearing to the game, riding the bus to the out-of-town games, and going to the teen center after the game. I'm going to let Ron give you the sports rundown for our class. Elsie Felix was my 3rd grade teacher at New Hope School. We called her Miss Elsie, and she stands out as one of my favorite teachers. She taught 3rd and 4th grades, so it was interesting to overhear the 4th grade lessons as well. Watching her teaching style convinced me that I wanted to be an elementary teacher. 60 years later, I can still picture Miss Elsie's classroom, and I will always be grateful that she helped me plan my career. I've made a few not-so-good decisions in my life, but deciding to be an elementary school teacher was definitely the best decision of my life. Not only did I love my 32 years of teaching, but those experiences gave me some material to share with you tonight. In the teaching profession, every teacher begins with lesson plans. And during my 32 years, I've prepared hundreds and hundreds of them. And I altered these plans hundreds or more times, depending on the circumstances of the moment. I thought it would be fun tonight to share with you some lessons that I've learned over the years. And most of these were not planned. Katie Hancock Thomas and I spent our first year at Asbury College in Wilmore, Kentucky. Now, at that time, Asbury College was very, very conservative, and they required chapel 3 times a week, no pants or jeans on campus. Couples were not even allowed to hold hands and could not be together after 6 p.m. There was a rumor going around that Asbury students who got married didn't know what to do after 6 p.m. Very, very conservative. During a very boring Saturday in late winter, Katie and I had cleaned our room, and we decided we needed a coffee table to grace our room. We remembered that there was a table in the dining hall, and we couldn't remember anyone ever using it. So within an hour of carrying the table back to our room, security knocked at the door and told us that this was the president's coffee table, and he used it when he had coffee with special guests. Not only did we have to return it immediately, but we had to appear before President Johnson the following Monday morning. I was scared to death. Will we be expelled? How many demerits is this going to cost us? I was beside myself, but not Katie. She kept saying, "Don't worry, I know how to handle this." That's why I didn't really believe her. What could I do but hope that Katie knew something that I didn't know? Just before we walked into the president's office on Monday morning, Katie took some Vicks Vapor Rub and smeared it very carefully on each eyelid. By the time we reached the president's desk, we were crying our eyes out. With a little more drama on our part, President Johnson assumed we were really repentant, and he forgave us with no demerits. The lesson I learned very early in life was when all else fails, turn on the tears.
Right.
How many of you remember Miss Rose Smith? Fresh out of college, teaching us women's health. To be politically correct today, it would probably be called sex education, but it wasn't called that way back then. Remember how we had to draw and label the important parts of the female and male bodies? Did you guys have to do that too? I saw Miss Smith a few months ago when several of my women friends from church met for lunch. During our visit, we got into sharing stories about when our kids were little. Mary shared her experience when son Justin was in kindergarten. Justin's teacher called after school one day and awkwardly suggested that Mary should have a talk with Justin. Apparently, he was touching another little boy in an inappropriate manner in the boys' restroom. Mary said she fretted all afternoon. What should she say? How should she bring it up? What do you say to a 5-year-old? What was going on? Finally at supper, she asked, "How did things go at school today?" Justin answered, "Fine." "Anything happen today?" "No." "Anything happen in the restroom?" Mary asked awkwardly, "Did you touch Johnny in the restroom today?" "Mama, he said he was peeing all over my shoes." Well, Miss Smith was frank and answered all of our questions. I guess we didn't need to know all that much when we were just 5 years old. A lesson I learned was don't worry needlessly unless you have all the facts. Some of you remember Murray Hill, who taught us 8th grade at New Hope School. Among other subjects, he taught us sentence structure, spelling, and something called orthography. How words could be taken apart to learn their meaning. Mr. Hill would have enjoyed listening to our grandkids a few years ago while they were playing with some neighborhood children. My daughters, Melissa and Allison, were listening from the next room as their kids shared with friends what words they were not allowed to say. By saying we're not allowed to say hate, they were not really breaking the rules, and they could giggle at having used a forbidden word. At one point, one of the kids shared that they were not allowed to say but. Another kid said, "Are you allowed to say derriere?" Third grader Max had never heard this word, and my daughters heard him say, derriere. 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 Oh, is that like when a cow farts?